right. We are theoretically back, and we are on a Mac this time. I should be able to actually raise and lower resolutions and stuff. Haven't used OBS on this Mac for this purpose, so there may be a little bit of a learning curve as we get everything set up. I'm gonna set up all of my streaming crap over here so I can play with and work with that. Okay, so we have our webcam up is what it looks like, which I don't particularly need people to see. I'm in studio mode, okay. Yeah, we're all set from the freaking, God, why can't I, this is, alright, I'm gonna just rebuild this display. Yes. Yes. Okay, adding display capture, look at that, perfect. Create new display capture called laptop. And it's going to be display 1. Do not crop it. Boot to window. Oh, alright. Whatever. This is the wrong display though. Display 0. Perfect. And go. Now we can see my monitor. Look at this. This is exciting. And my monitors are not set up the way I want them to. Oh wait, where are they? Which one's which? Damn it. Alright, this is default and this is default. Oh, that's much better. Okay. What was I doing? This window needs to go over there. And OBS needs to not be full screen because it doesn't need to be. And okay, I think we're good. I'm gonna do a quick sound check because I have it muted. Okay, cool. I hear myself talking. Great. Okay. Anyway, let's start over. Hi. Today what we're gonna do is we are going to go ahead and just do some random sysadmin stuff on a system of mine that just, you know, my normal day-to-day things that I use. I'm going to close every window here. Oops, I don't want to hide it. I'm going to close it. Yeah. Okay. Close VMware. Chrome can stay. Okay. So we have, this is the computer we were using before. We don't need to see that or access that anymore. Chrome, I need that over there for stream so I can see that going on. All right. We are going to open a new window. Perfect. Okay. Let's log into our Puppet server and see what's going on. As I mentioned earlier, I use a password manager in order to handle all my passwords. So you'll see me tabbing over to this a lot. It's organized in such a way that it makes sense to me, and that's really all that matters. I'm going to log into Foreman. And here's what we got. We have 2 out-of-sync hosts, we have 2 hosts that have errors, and we have 10 good hosts. Let's check the out-of-sync hosts first and just see. So the 2 out-of-sync hosts, we have Wiki and Plex. Plex, I just upgraded to the latest version of Ubuntu, which has an incompatible Puppet version. so there's nothing to be done about that. Wiki, on the other hand, older Debian box, pain in my butt, needs to be decommissioned at some point. Go away. But we can at least catch it up with Foreman right now and see what's going on. So we're gonna SSH into Wiki, make this a little bigger. And become root. And see what's going on with Puppet. Puppet agents -t is what I usually use to go ahead and sync up with Puppet server. If this runs as expected, then there's no real problem. Looks like, oh, we got some stuff happening. That's cool. S0E0P stuff changed. Okay. That's one of the classes that we're going to be working with. And Puppet is running. Doesn't seem to run on its own, but whatever. Theoretically, just by doing that, we should at least have solved this issue with it not reporting it. And it looks like we have. We only have one out of sync host, which is known. That's our Debian box, or our new Ubuntu box, excuse me. So let's address the other things. We have two hosts in error state. We have black and an S1. Black's outside the scope of what I want to work on right now, but we can address an S1. S1 is CentOS. It's one of the few boxes in the environment that is not an Ubuntu box. So when I write classes, what I have to do is account for the fact that package names are different, locations of some files are different, and what's happening, I already know this because I've checked into it, is that we have a package that I wrote yesterday for S0E0P that can't work on RHEL because, or on CentOS, because there's no such thing as S0E0P in CentOS. So that's an easy fix. We just need to go to the Puppet server, become root, go into Puppet here, and the S0E0P class is what we're looking at. Now, I really need to get better at the way I write these Puppet classes, because they're pretty basic. I don't use variables right. I do all kinds of bad practice stuff. But what I really need to do is I need to add logic that the default thing to do will be install S0E0P package, but if it's a CentOS box, it needs to be whatever CentOS wants. So I'm going to open up another terminal here and copy a class that I've already written that does similar logic, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I don't remember how to do it. Be root again. Well, that's another annoyance on all these boxes. The Jeremy user, I don't think the default shell is bash. Let's actually check that. See, I get sidetracked real lazy, but let's see, password grep Jeremy, and lo and behold, I don't have a default shell set. So I could tackle that, or I could tackle, I'm gonna tackle this, and then I'm gonna tackle that. So this is what my day is like, and this is what just being an engineer, being an administrator. You know what? This would be really. I wonder if Tyler's around. He may have an interest in this. I'm gonna. Bear with me. This is dead air, but I have a friend who's, you know, he's an engineer as well, and just I like to try to help him do stuff as well, and he's been asking about like paths to do more interesting and challenging things, and so I just wanted to give him an example of what sort of stuff I do, and maybe that'll be helpful for him. Anyway, so we're going to tackle the S0E0P issue first. So I have a class that is doing this already. I have a couple classes that are doing this already. One of which let's see if I can figure out which one is doing this. I think that the checkmk client class does this. Let's take a look here. Yeah, perfect. This is what I want. So what this does is this will use one of the built-in Puppet variables, the operating system, switch it, like a normal logic switch statement. If it's Gen 2, do this. If it's not, do this. So I'm going to add that same logic here and paste this in. So I'm adding this to the S0E0P class. And what this will allow me to do, make this a little smaller here. We are going to check. If it is CentOS, then we're going to do whatever S0E0P CentOS is called. I'll have to look that up in a second. And the default, which will be the Ubuntu, and probably everything else, is S0E0PD. Then this class down here, we don't have any requirements for this package, so we can take that line out. And we want to ensure that we have the latest version. I can take out these lines because what I just did is doing the same thing. We're still... Oh, this is interesting. We're also going to have to change this from the default there to package name. And we'll have to do the same thing down with the configuration file. We may also have to do logic here for the service name. We'll just check and see if it's called something different on CentOS or not. But first we'll test it by doing package name and saving our changes. This should still fail on CentOS because S0E0P-CentOS is clearly not the right thing. But I want to make sure the logic works on a normal box. Since I'm already logged into the Puppet server over here, I'm going to run Puppet against itself and just see if it crashes out on this S0E0P logic. Beautiful. So none of my current systems should have any issues. I'm going to go ahead and log out of the Puppet server and log into the name server that's having issues. And from there, we're going to be able to do a Puppet run. So let's do it again just to see what happens. And we're running into an error. Okay, so could not update execution of user bin yum. Return an error, no matching packages, because S0E0P CentOS doesn't exist. So I'm going to have to go ahead and search and figure out what the package name is in CentOS to figure out what it needs to replace. So I'm going to do a yum search on S0E0PD. And look at this, net-S0E0P. Couldn't be any easier. So I'm going to go ahead and go back over here and change it from S0E0P CentOS to net-S0E0P. And save the change over there. Now we're going to go to our name server box and we're going to do another Puppet run, Puppet agent-t. And hopefully this won't have any errors. It's going to take a little longer than usual because it's installing the package. And it looks like it installed the package. and it did the configuration changes that allow it to use the S0E0P as expected. We can do a test, S0E0P. Actually, we can check and see if S0E0P is working by browsing over to our cacti and viewing that device. So I'm going to view graphs. This, oh, we won't see the graphs yet because they won't have been created. But an S1 is now reporting as having a system Linux state, which means that we can contact it, and that problem is solved. So if we go back to the Puppet console dashboard, we now only have one host in error state, and that's black. So we can go ahead, well, we actually don't know that. There, it's black. So we can go take a look and see, hey, what's going on with black? So we're going to the reports, and there's two failed things, and we have could not find you. Oh, okay. So black is in the situation that I've installed a couple different versions of Puppet on it and moved it around, and I think it's confused about what's happening with that. So I'm going to do a quick try to fix that, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to have to go back to it because it's kind of not going to be an interesting process, I don't think. Maybe it will be, depends on what you're into, but let's just see what happens when I run Puppet. Puppet agent -t. Go ahead and get out of this entirely for right now. And it looked like Puppet ran, actually, on black just fine, which is weird. Let's go back to our dashboard. And there are no errors. So that, okay, right? Fixed it. Weird enough. Alright, so now we're back to out of sync. We have our Plex and our wiki shouldn't be out of sync. Although it looks like it's not checking in regularly. I don't use the wiki like I think I should. So what I'm going to actually do to solve this, in quotes, is I'm going to decommission wiki entirely. I want to back up the contents of it just in case I start using it again, but wiki is a turnkey Linux. One of the original boxes in my environment that wasn't really part of the grand scheme of things. I just was like, hey, I should have documentation somewhere. I still should have documentation, and I don't have it because I'm the only, quote, employee or, I don't know, person that uses this. So, I don't know. I'll have to do something better about it. But, like, let's see if we can dump the data in case I need it later, and then go from there. So wiki, I don't even know what type of wiki this is. Let's see if it's obvious. Okay, it's a Doku wiki, I'm assuming, because it has doku.php. Maybe there's a way to export this entire thing just from here. So we go to wiki, and we have our Linux VM build. Oh wow, see, this is not even necessary because I'm using Foreman for all of this, so I don't have to save that. ESXEVC, this is just a reminder that it's Nihilum. vSAN, this is actually useful information, so I'm gonna see if I can export this. I'll just copy this entire thing. And I'll store it where would be a good place to store this. I'm gonna store it on black, just in a text file. It'll probably be lost forever, but yeah, we'll see. Alright, so this is related to Jeremy box local VMware vSAN setup notes. It's the worst file name ever, but it'll help me. Pop that in there, and then at least I have that for the future. And wiki can be decommissioned, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, cool. Let's decommission that box entirely because it's got all kinds of issues. Decommissioning using Foreman is easy because I can just delete it. Gone. The host is gone. It should theoretically actually be gone, but Foreman didn't actually kill it, unless it's on the way shutting down. We'll have to log into the vCenter and see what happened. It wasn't created with Foreman, so it may not actually have done what I expected it to. Right, tour at JeremyBox. Cool. And again, I don't know my passwords, so good old password safe. Password safe also, again, it's nice because it lets you change your password there and then have a historical record of your passwords if you need them, or you can, you don't have to remember hundreds of changed crazy passwords. So let's go into our vCenter, and wiki is still there. Let's kill wiki. You've been good, but we don't need you anymore. So it's shutting down. Refresh. Refresh again. I did a nice shutdown. There we go. Now it's powered off. We can delete it from the disk. And now wiki has been decommissioned from our environment entirely. Kill that. I can also pull it out of cacti because it's no longer. It's weird that there's two of them. Alright. Delete them. And we're done. Alright, status unknown versus status down. Weird. Let's go into here, and this is probably one of the. Okay. Not sure why that would be unknown if it is reading it, but current. Let's check again. Syslog. Let's do a query. It's getting information. Let's do a query. It's getting information. Maybe it just got stuck. Save devices. Syslog still unknown? That's weird. And this one has been down for 17 minutes. But it appears up, so I'm not sure where to do a query. And it's getting the data. It's probably a bug in polling. SNMP error. Okay, that is reasonable because black is a Gen 2 box and it hasn't been set up right, so whatever. Be fine with that. Okay. Let's go back to Foreman and take a look at what the status is right now of everything. So black is back to an error state, which doesn't surprise me. And this time, unable to fetch my node definition. So first off, there's some sort of communication error between Puppet and black, because if I manually run it, it's fine. We don't have any issues, I don't think. That's really weird. Let's go ahead and just kill the SSL certificates, wipe everything entirely. Let's see, Puppet SSL. Kill that, and then var lib Puppet. SSL. Different versions store it in different places. So now we're going to do a puppet agent-t, and it should complain, hey, your SSL key is not accepted by the server. Sign it. Okay. So we also have a server for cert for black.jeremybox.local in Puppet. So we're going to clear that as well. So we're going to this infrastructure, smart proxies. There's a Puppet CA for my infrastructure. I'm going to go into the certs and revoke the cert for black because we're going to generate a new one. Yes, I'm sure. Alright, so that certificate has been revoked from the Puppet server. We're going to try to connect to Puppet again, and what this will do is it'll generate a cert signing request, or we'll get an error of some sort. So let's go ahead and clear the certificate directories again. There's nothing in varlib Puppet, and Etsy Puppet SSL gone. Try to connect to the Puppet server. It should generate a cert. So yeah, creating a key. There we go. It's requesting cert. It's going to exit because I don't have auto accept on. Go back to the certificate authority smart proxy. And why is black still there? Something. So alexschlott.jerrybox.local I don't think exists anymore. It doesn't. So that should be cleaned out of the public certs. Black.jerrybox.local, it still has the entry in there. Oh, here we go, it's pending. Oh, it's just old data. We're going to sign the cert. That's what we expected to see. Successfully updated. It's happy. So if we go to black and connect back to Puppet, we should expect everything to go fine. Everything appears to have gone fine. Let's do a verbose just to see. Oh, nothing different. Okay. If we go to our Puppet dashboard, 92%. Okay, hey, we'd like to see that. Again, Plex is out of sync because it is a newer version of Ubuntu, and the version of Puppet that is in this Plex, or this Puppet server, can't communicate with the version of Puppet that's on this Plex server. Ubuntu 16.10 just came out. Plex was the server I decided to test that exact situation on, and well, it'll be something that as Foreman releases a new version that's compatible with Puppet or with Ubuntu 16.10, that'll solve itself. So it's not really worth pursuing at all. I'll just deal with not having the Plex server be managed by Puppet. Okay. So the other issue we identified earlier that we may as well take a look at is the Jeremy user that I'm creating doesn't have a default shell. This is going to be, again, another simple change that I can spread across my whole environment using Puppet. If I take a look at my host groups, I can see that in my Jeremy box environment host group that I've set up, the only class that I send everywhere is user-jeremy. That's what creates the user, creates home directory. So anything that's in that host group is going to automatically get a Jeremy user created. This is a stopgap until I set up some sort of central authentication like LDAP. But this environment's kind of being built piece by piece, and so I'm trying to make sure that I can do whatever in the meantime. So let's go ahead and just take a look at that. Going to the Puppet server as usual. And again, this is exactly, we don't have tab completion, we don't have our nice shell that we get when we go to root. You see we have root at Puppet. I'm trying to make that happen. So let's edit Etsy Puppet modules user Jeremy, and manifests init.pp. So I'm not 100% sure what to do here, but it's probably under this user directive. Yeah, right here. There's probably a shell dash whatever simple solution, but I'm going to look at the Puppet documentation to find out. Puppet user. It would be smart to make sure I'm looking at the same version of Puppet. You can generally get away with it not being, because there's not going to be much change to something like user, but just make sure. I think I'm 3.8, 3.7, something like that. It's close enough. There we go. Shell, the user's login shell. The shell must exist and be executable and requires features manages shell. So we're going to do manages shell. Yes, just like manage home. And shell bin bash. I don't know if this is the right syntax. This is me kind of guessing, but it's fine. Now, something to remember and be aware of is if you're pushing something to the main branch, like if you're in a production environment where there's customers and things that matter, you probably don't want to be live editing your Puppet classes and then just testing them, because I'm going to start seeing some errors, because see this error pop up in the Puppet dashboard or in the Foreman dashboard as the other hosts just automatically suck in this configuration that I'm building that's wrong. For something that's not that big a deal, you just have an error for one of the two of the Puppet runs and then it gets fixed. But be sure if you're editing something like network configurations or root access or anything that might lock you out of the box, or even in Puppet itself, that you do this in a development environment and don't do it in production. If you're creating a new class, it's helpful to only add it to a single server that you can test on, and don't break everything, because that's bad. Anyway, invalid parameter manager cell. Yeah, so this is a matter of I didn't bother to read the documentation, and so shell manage home. I'm just gonna try it without that and see what happens. I'm not quite sure. Again, this is more, we can read the documentation or we can just bang on it. And look at that. Shell change from nothing to bin bash. Let's just see what happens. Exit SSH Puppet again. And look, we have a bash shell. And we can test if tab completion works, /etc Puppet. And tab completion works. Beautiful. So one, thing at a time, we're making our environment better. We could run this everywhere. I'm going to do is just leave it alone, and it's going to suck into all the other boxes as time goes on. You can see there was a just active Puppet run. We still have an out of sync host. Didn't we fix that? Oh, Plex. Duh. Okay, so now as Puppet runs, it's going to take care of that generator user, and we're going to not have to worry about any of that. So that's cool. Yeah, what should we do now? Going to the environment, monitoring in my environment's in a kind of sad state. Monitoring exists, but I haven't really done anything with it. So that's the direction that I can go. I can try to get some of the Windows machines in my environment brought into Puppet. That's probably a good idea, but not necessarily something I want to invest too much time in. A big project is this name server 1 needs to get off CentOS 7.2 and needs to become a Ubuntu box. I don't know. I have some people coming over, so I don't have enough time to really make that work. So here's what I want to do. Let's take a look at some of the supported Puppet modules from the Puppet Forge, see if any of them can either be applied to something in my environment, or if any of them like would be a good thing to build. You know what? Actually, as I look at this, I realize in my environment I have tfhnet.local. So a friend of mine, I'm setting up an environment for him. He has a server, guacamole.tfhnet, that is not appearing in this list. So let's go ahead and run through that, figure out why it's not under Puppet control, and what needs to happen to make it work. I'm going to just go ahead and get on that box if I can naturally. Guacamole, tfhnet.local. And let's actually first see if we can resolve it. Okay, so there's a couple issues here. I can't resolve names in his environment because I decided to let him run his own DNS. A future project, and as part of upgrading the name server, this is NS1, the CentOS box, might be to have the subdomains that I host all forward to this or update this so that I can resolve them and do maintenance on them. I may not even need to because I'm not going to be accessing them very often. But let's bring it into Puppet, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to manually connect to it through the vCenter. Theoretically. There it is. Okay. So it looks like I was doing something with it. Puppet configuration client in progress. Something is busted with this. Let's just kill Puppet. Really? Wow. Okay. Let's kill 684 11908 and remove var lib puppet state agent catalog run lock and run Puppet manually. It might have been a smart idea to see if what Puppet server it's trying to use and if it can communicate with that Puppet server. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on a second terminal. So I'm going to go over to terminal 2, log in as myself, become root, and look at the etc puppet conf file. Alright, so agent server is puppet.jeremybox.local. That may or may not become a problem. I may need to have, again, this is a complication of having DNS not managed in his environment by me. Let's just see what happens. So I ping Puppet, nothing happens. Puppet.jeremybox.local. I think he's allowed to use my name servers, so he is able to ping puppet.jeremybox or resolve puppet.jeremybox.local. But it looks like you can't connect to puppet.jeremybox.local, which, let's see, my Puppet box should have a interface in his environment, which he can ping. Okay, so there's a couple ways to solve this. I could do it. The bad way would be a manual host entry, so that whenever he tries to ping puppet.jeremybox.local, it reroutes him to that IP. It would probably be smarter to enable DNS in his environment, at least temporarily, which may be, let's see if in his environment, ping puppet.tfhnet.local is an unknown host. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on DNS in his environment for his environment on the firewall. So that should be easy. Let's fixed until we figure out what's up with this. Router's server DNS address could not be found. Really? Don't know what's up with that. That's another thing. See, this is working on systems like this. There's an inception of like, oh, I found a problem. Oh, I found another problem. Oh, this should be fixed. This should be fixed. And stuff like this in a corporate environment, there's two things to think about. One is you should have it set up right, so you shouldn't run into these problems. But you oftentimes get into a situation where there's stuff in place, you inherit it, you know, come in, you're the new guy, and you start noticing these little things that need to be fixed. And so you start fixing them, but tickets start coming in or requests from people for other things. And I don't, at least in my current spot, there's a big disconnect with managerial expectations of what you're doing during the day and how much work you can get done compared to like stuff like this that's just routine maintenance and needs to happen. But oh, a customer wants this file changed, or oh, a customer wants this, constantly gets more important, more important, more important, and then your environment falls apart, and you get to a point where you can't manage customer requests, you can't handle normal day-to-day activities like building a VM or whatever, because the underlying infrastructure is busted. And it's hard because at that point your solution is ignore all incoming customer requests, fix the environment, which, as you see, everything I'm doing today, it goes deeper, there's something else tied to it, there's something else. You can triage something, you can fix it, or you can, and then there's the, right now, if I wanted this to work, I could just add the entry to the host file and be done. But that's not sustainable. That's not forward thinking. That's not going to actually get you, it's not a solution that makes it work for the rest of the computers in the environment. So it's just it's a big cluster. I mean, it's the only way to explain that. But anyway, so we're going to do is, like I said, enable DNS on these interfaces and see what happens, if that fixes the puppet issue for now, or if we need to do something else. Alright, admin, that's what I was doing. I was tabbing over because I don't know my password. We're going to log into the router. Where's my password? Why don't... Oh, that's because that's one that I actually know. Which I'm going to add to this because I can't remember stuff. So this is router. Admin. Now later on, I'm going to change that to a user-generated password or a Gorilla-generated password and make it a little more secure. While I'm building this particular environment, there's a lot of, I don't know, the ease of use is a consideration, ease of access. Even being less secure while you're building the environment, if it's not a production thing, not something that anybody even has access to, that it's, in the interest of building it is probably all right. But I would say in production you should have everything randomized and locked down. All right, so we're going to go back, log in, services. We're going to look at the DHCP server on TFHnet, which is enabled. It's giving out names. Let's check the pool. DHCP leases. So we have TFHnet has one lease in use. That's actually kind of questionable, unless it doesn't count. That's weird because, well, what I'm looking for is puppet.tfhnet.local is set to 172.16.101.13, and guacamole.tfhnet.local is one whatever. So we can sort these so we can see them easier. Yeah, so there's two, but only one's in use. So I wonder if it. Oh, and this is offline? Interesting. Let's take a look at that. That could be part of the problem too. Or wait, we pinged it and it works, right? Can this ping out? 172.16.101.1. You can see it. Ping 8.8.8.8. It can see it. What the heck? So the server. Let's go to the Puppet server real quick. Alright, the Puppet server is showing that it has internet address of 172.16.101.13, but which is a DHCP reserved lease that I have for it. Let's go ahead and just refresh DHCP on that interface and see what happens. DH client ANS160. File exists, whatever. Just make sure. Still good. Okay. Ping guacamole dot tfhnet dot local. You can't see it. Let's look up that actually. Look up guacamole dot tfhnet dot local, and we're gonna ask the DHCP server if it knows what the address is. So 172.10. This is the 101 environment. Oh, guacamole. It looks like it's not able to resolve it, so let's go back. Okay, so timed out, no service can be reached, that's fine. We're gonna go to the status and then no services. We're gonna look at DNS. So DNS resolver isn't necessarily what we want. What's the difference between a DNS forwarder and DNS resolver? Okay, if this option is set and machines specify the host name and requesting a DHCP lease will be registered in the forwarder so the name can be resolved. So that's possibly what we want. Enable DNS forwarder, register DHCP leases. That sounds like what we want. Register DHCP static mappings. That's also what we want. And resolve them first. Okay, yeah, we're gonna run this on everything. Go ahead and lock and load. Apply the changes. Alright, changes have been applied successfully. Let's try to do another lookup. And we're still running into it not happening. So DNS forwarder doesn't seem to be what we want. Let's go ahead and disable that just so we are in the same state we were when we started. And go to DNS resolver. Alright. Okay, so here we go. Enable it on everything. Enable forwarding mode. I don't think we want to forward for right now. We do want the DHCP leases and the static mappings to be available. And we're going to apply those changes. There's an access lists option that we may want to later. Let's see, advanced settings. So a lot of buffer settings, all that kind of stuff. This is probably good security-wise, but for right now, not what we're looking for. We're trying to just see how this works. So NS lookup. And that's not responding to any name servers either. Let's take a step back and see how stupid we are. Sometimes on the firewall, we may have rules that say, hey, this isn't allowed to do anything. So TFH net's where our traffic's coming from. Our setting on the firewall is all IPv4 traffic from anywhere to anywhere on any port with any gateway is allowed. So that's not the problem. On the LAN interface, we have everything's allowed, so that's fine. On the WAN interface, we have deny everything that is not these ports that's coming from a reserved address. So that's fine. That's what we want. Provisioning actually is an artifact that doesn't exist anymore. So we can take care of that network and get rid of it entirely. Sounds fun, right? In order to do that, we may actually have to reboot the firewall, which will cause us to drop internet connection and therefore lose the stream. So that sounds fun, right? Let's see what happens. First thing I'm going to do is go to the router device itself, which is a VM. And we're going to edit those settings and take a look at what interfaces and what they're on. So there's 4 network adapters. One is to ISP, one's jerrybox.local, one's tfhnet.local, and one is to the provisioning network, which is no longer used. So we're going to go ahead and just remove the provisioning network. And I'm pretty sure I can hot do that on a VM just fine. But of course, we're going to have to see what happens. It looks like it's doing stuff. That's a good start. We can also go tab back to the interfaces on the router and delete that interface so it's not configured, not in use, not being used for anything. Good, so that's showing as available. We can leave that alone. And we're going to wait for the vCenter to catch up. Might be interesting to go to the console of this too and see what it's doing. We have successful login. That's not all that interesting. Looks like we have text messages. Let's check those. Alright, so TJ, come over whenever. Sorry, TJ, for the 2 people watching the stream. Your phone number is now on the stream. And then Chris, take a shot to go for a rope. Lost the cards. Do anything? I don't think I need any cards. Sorry, Chris. And then, all right. It's kind of like dirtling around while I'm waiting for. Okay, we got an error, which is actually kind of responding. The system did not respond to a hot remove request. Possibly because it was in use, and possibly just because this operating system won't support that. I'm going to try it one more time now that I've decommed that device in the interface and just see what happens. If this doesn't work, I'm going to shut it down, remove it, reboot it, and in that time I'm guaranteeing I'm going to lose my internet connection. So I think Twitch reconnects, but hey, it'll actually be an interesting experiment to see what happens when that happens. Yeah, it looks like that's not happening, so why not shut down the router? And in real life, shutting down a router is a terrible idea. If you have any customers, if you have any, if you have any sane bones in your body, you don't do this. So I'm going to do it, and it's actually not going to. I'm curious how Twitch works, too. So if anybody on Twitch is watching, or maybe I can just watch the video later, after I do this process, I want to see if it buffers what I do since. So like, if you watch the screen, will you see me going in, removing the interface, starting the router back up, or will it just catch up when I can reconnect? I think Twitch will automatically pick up that I'm broadcasting again. So yeah, all kinds of things. Whatever. Shutting down router seems like a good idea. Done. battery is shut down, or on its way to be shut down. It'll actually be shut down when you stop hearing my beautiful buttery voice. Let's see. Shut down in pro.